Hi there folks, Joel Self, Outdoor Instructor here, back in the garden for another requested video. This one's a little bit chatty, so do grab a seat, get yourself a brew, and yeah, just make sure you can take all this in, because we're going to talk about something that actually is quite a big deal, and certainly shook me up for a while. Oh, there's a bee. We're going to be having a chat about accidents or potential accidents. That bee is really keen to sort of get involved. I was asked the question, what's the most serious or dangerous accident that could have happened where you've had to intervene? That'd be. Sorry, I'm going to get really distracted through this video now. The accident that I've sort of picked up to talk about in this video was when a local school teacher had brought a group to my local indoor climbing wall. Now, straight off the bat, you know, this is not, it seems strange to say it, it's not the teacher's fault. I think it was a lack of training and a lack of progression for them to get to a stage where they were competent and able to make decisions about people using a climbing wall. So what happened was that the teacher tied a figure of 8, and we'll show you this knot in a moment, but they tied a figure of 8 and they clipped it to a child. And as they clipped it to the child and walked off to go and get the belayer to start taking in, I instantly saw something wrong with the knot. And I just happened to be there. I had arrived not realising these guys were using the wall, and I had come in sort of 15 minutes early just to do some warm-up traverses before my session. And I'm really, really glad I was there, because as you'll see in a moment when I show you the knot that was used and tied onto this person's harness, as the teacher walked away and that rope started getting taken tight, I saw the figure of eight flip, and it looked really misshapen, and I could instantly tell that something was like majorly not right with this knot. And so I straight away went and got involved and, you know, stopped their session. I tried to do it in as quiet a way as possible, but still letting this teacher know that everything needed to stop straight away, because as you'll see from the knot, it just came undone. It was not a figure of 8. I've sort of looked up various knots to see if it kind of maybe is something that's just been loaded in a strange way. It looks similar to an inline figure of 8, and I think it sort of rolls in the same kind of way, so it may be a similar knot, but I don't think it's a true inline figure of 8. But effectively it had been tied as it was by mistake. It was not the idea. It should have been tied as a figure of 8 on the bike, clipped to this child's harness, and then they were going to climb. And as that rope was being pulled tight, the whole thing started flipping, and it didn't come undone until I pulled on the end of the rope to show them, to show the main body of the rope, not the tail, that the whole thing would just flip and come undone totally. And, you know, if I hadn't have been there, and this is not to big me up, this is for everyone to kind of take note of, because I feel it's a really important thing, and it did shake me up that this had almost happened. But if that child had climbed on that knot and nobody had got involved and nobody had spotted it and nobody had, you know, stopped this child from leaving the floor, when they'd sat down onto that knot, I can guarantee you it would have come undone. Equally, if they'd fallen off partway up the route, sat down to have a rest, whatever the case may be, if they'd weighted that knot at whatever height they were on the wall, it would have come undone. And so we'll show you that knot on the screen now, and I'll sort of voice over that and talk through what happened. But very quickly, whilst we're sat here, we'll just go through, you know, they were attempting to tie a figure of 8 on the bike to clip the child in. So the knot they were looking for was this, which is our sort of normal climbing knot. You know, nothing wrong with that. There's various debate about stopper knots and things. The long story short, you don't need a stopper knot, but you should be buddy checking. And there were 2 instructors on this session. Instructors, they were school teachers who've been sort of passed off in-house by a technical advisor to run these sessions with school kids, and that's what they were aiming for. Presumably that's what they were taught to tie. That's not what they came up with, and they just missed one strand. And it's talking through with the guy who tied the knot about how easy it is to accidentally do that, really drove it home that, like, even as instructors, maybe get the kids to buddy check the knots that you've tied. We absolutely should be buddy checking everyone all the time. And I think, often the junior climbers that I work with, will set things up and they will buddy check. And even if I've tied a knot and we've clipped it onto their harness, I ask them to buddy check. This is something that's always been done. It's just how I instruct my sessions. But I feel like in that particular scenario, if the children had been buddy checking one another, even though the instructor has put together the setups, that may have been caught by the child, or even better, the instructor may have spotted it and gone, oh my goodness, I've made a mistake here, let's get everyone in and we'll talk about it. Because I feel like as climbing instructors, if we make errors, if we're going to make the mistake, 100% that kid's going to make a mistake at some point that's going to be similar. And so if we drive home the point that you absolutely have to buddy check all the time, because everyone makes mistakes sometimes, it's going to have a big impact on them, particularly if it's you fessing up to making a mistake, because then they're not going to feel shy or upset about having made a mistake themselves, and they're going to be quite open and say, oh yeah, no, I need to buddy check because I might also make a mistake. So sort of a bit of extra waffle there, sorry, but this is what they're aiming for, and we'll now show you on the screen what they ended up with. So they've taken their bight of rope and they've started doing their figure of eight. Unfortunately, and I've exaggerated it here to prove the point, but they went between the main body of the rope and the tail when crossing over to make the loop. Obviously this isn't totally well dressed, but they've crucially missed a strand so that the tail and the main body of the rope are not coming out the same part of the figure of eight, which means under load we see this happen. And that is a really scary thought. So as you can see from that clip there, as soon as any kind of load was put on that knot, it just unraveled and came straight off of the carabiner. And that was just with me pulling on it gently. If you had a child who's 13, 14 years old sitting back onto that knot, almost certainly would have found it coming undone and then falling through the air, finishing looking a bit like a spilt jar of jam. Which we absolutely do not want. So really pleased to have got involved and stopped that from going any further. And we had a good chat with the school teacher who had run that session. Things got reported to the relevant people and all that process was gone through. But figure of eights are like our go-to climbing knot. But it just shows that a small, like super tiny little error could be the difference between this being a really bomber knot and a knot that just falls to pieces as soon as any load's put on it. So we absolutely need to be buddy checking, and I can't express that enough. Like if you tie top down through your harness, or bottom up, or you tie a stopper knot or you don't tie a stopper knot, there's lots of argument about all these things and which is right and which is wrong and everything else. It doesn't really matter. The point is that if you've got a safe knot, you're safe. If you've got something that's been tied incorrectly, that's not safe, and that's what people need to be picking up, and the only way you're going to do that is through a buddy check. So every time you climb, if it's with me, if it's with another instructor, if it's with your friend, if it's with your classmate, whoever you're climbing with, make sure that every time you climb you buddy check, and you don't just glance at the setup and go, oh yeah, it looks sort of right. You need to actually get involved. Look at that knot, is it right? Oh, hang on, I've turned it over and we don't have two bits of rope on that section, there's one missing, which is exactly the case we had here, where only one strand had gone astray and the whole thing was super unsafe. So really this video has been put together to sort of rant at you about buddy checking, but it is super, super important. I can't stress enough that you should be buddy checking all the time. So sorry it's a bit ranty, this video. Hopefully the content was interesting for you, and it's sort of giving you an idea of why we really have to be on it as climbing instructors, why we really need to be on it as trainers. So for those who are teaching others to do things, so like when I'm teaching particularly young children to tie figure of eights, it might take flipping ages, but that's fine so long as we get it right. I'm happy to spend a whole hour-long session with a kid just getting that knot right, and we might do 1 or 2 climbs. We're not going to get 5, 6, 7 done. If that knot is right by the end of it though, that's been a really successful session. I don't want them to sort of half learn it and get loads of climbing done. I want them to learn that knot. So 100% take the time to make sure that people learn those knots and learn those hard skills and rope work skills really, really well. Yeah, big ranty video from me. Very sorry if that's not what you came here looking to watch, but that's what this is, and I do hope that it was a help to you. I've been Joseph Atler, Instructor. Thank you very much for watching this video, and for now, goodbye.